understand and consistently update reality, yet believe what benefits you. And so this is huge because I talk about, you know, the power of belief and how it's so huge. And it basically runs your entire life and determines, what you'll do on a day to day and therefore the outcomes that you'll get in life, like your beliefs. Um, and also like how huge, uh, what's it called? Um, how huge the placebo effect is. And even when you know it's a placebo, it even has major, you know, physiological effects on your body and on your brain. But what I talk about here when I say understand and consistently update reality, yet believe what benefits you is, the purpose of gaining information and knowledge and going about your life is to understand and consistently update reality, right? We want to see reality for what it is. Um, and as humans, we're inherently biased because we don't have all the information. And so we're trying to get all the information. That's what we're doing. That's why we are making scientific discoveries and exploring and figuring out how physics work, how chemistry works, how mathematics work. Mathematics inherently is something that we kind of just made up with imaginary expressions, imaginary numbers, but we're finding systems and ways to understand the world. And the point of understanding the world is so that we can better predict the future, right? All of the things that we do. This is a huge point that so many people don't understand. Like, the point of all this knowledge is so that we can better predict the future. Like, when farmers realized that they could plant seeds in the spring and then harvest them in the fall, and they knew that like they were going to grow and harvest in the fall if they watered them and made sure they had sun, like that was huge. And like Benjamin Franklin, when he came out with his like farmer's almanac or whatever it was, and they, was able to explain to farmers how to farm and what times the sun was going to rise and set and all these things so that they could better farm and get foods. Like, the purposes of these books and of these scientific experiments is to be able to better predict the future. We want to know, how does this food affect us? How do these plastics and chemicals and scents affect us? Um, are we able to, breathe in space when we sent up dogs and animals into space? Um, can we live off of this food that is genetically modified? And so, like, that's the purpose of gaining knowledge, especially as a child. Like, you're growing up and you're learning about all this stuff. You're soaking everything up as a sponge, and then you're able to critically think. And that's one of the main things that differentiates us humans from animals is that we can focus on the future and act in certain ways in knowing about the future. Other animals are kind of always living in the present. And as I talk about, I think humans, we should live more in the present sometimes as individuals. But um, we are able to predict the future. Like, the reason that I'm making these videos right now is because I like to talk about what I think about and what I learn about, but also because I know it will help me with my public speaking or just speaking skills in general. um, it gives me the possibility of people watching it on YouTube and giving me comments or different ideas about what they think themselves or what they think about my thoughts. Um, and so those are kind of things that will happen in the future, but I'm doing this now, um, even though I know the benefits won't be kind of immediate. And so I have some like, oh, so like that's why you need to understand and consistently update reality, right? But you want to believe what benefits you. So, and this is inherently why it's so hard for people to change. So, like when I tell people about, scents, plastics, chemicals that are affecting their body and their health and their fertility and their future, yet they love their Lululemon clothing, right? They love their Lululemon clothing. They love their, you know, coffee in the morning, which is pretty much just like dessert, like a cheesecake in a bottle. They love all their unhealthy food. They love their makeup and their body creams and lotions that have all these dyes and chemicals in them that gets absorbed into their body. They love all these things, and so they inherently don't believe anything that I tell them or don't even consider it because that doesn't benefit them. Like, why would it benefit them to believe that all these things that they like are actually hurting them? Like, it doesn't benefit them. And so I'm saying, yes, like, for example, if I was forced to smoke, like, I know smoking is bad, and that you shouldn't do it if you want to be healthy, if you want to be healthier. But if I was forced to smoke, let's say, yeah, if someone had, like, I was a slave or whatever, and they forced me to smoke every single day, I would take on the belief that smoking was healthy for me. By smoking every day, it would help my lungs become stronger. It would help my, body become stronger, brain become stronger, build more muscle, etc. Whatever I need to believe in order to think that smoking is good for me. Because, and I would genuinely try to believe it because that placebo effect is massive and we don't know enough about it. But I know that by thinking that and by truly trying to convince myself of that and truly convincing myself of that, that I would have a fundamentally different outcome instead of, being forced to smoke and what am I going to do? Rebel and then get killed? No, I can just like or just not even rebel, but just smoke it and be like, "Oh my God, I hate smoking this. Like it's going to be so bad for me. Um it's going to do all these things to my body." I'm kind of in a perpetual loop of making the effects worse almost with that placebo effect. And so instead, if I say to myself that smoking is really good for me and it's going to help me improve in all these different ways, especially if some of the ways are good, because there are certain things with smoking that are, good, which is, appetite suppressant. Um, the nicotine can help you be more like mentally alert. So maybe if I talk about some of those actual true benefits, or even I could just make them up, like I said, it's gonna impact me better. Again, that's a kind of an unrealistic scenario because I'm not forced to smoke. Um, and then, but if I were in that scenario, forced to smoke, and then all of a sudden I was released and not a slave and didn't have to smoke, I would consistently update reality and I would believe what benefits me. So now that I don't have to smoke, I would believe what benefits me, which in reality, I understand that smoking is actually not good for you. And so I would switch my beliefs and take on the mindset that I have now of like smoking is not good for you, don't do it. And I would stop smoking, right? And so, yeah, and so other things for people like I was talking about in my previous videos about scents, forever chemicals, plastic, phthalates, parabens, pesticides, herbicides. Like these are many things in our environment that are affecting us. Um, and there are many things that you can do about them, but there are also things that, certain people can't do about them through financial reasons or other reasons. And so, if you literally cannot afford any other food besides regular food, like maybe it is beneficial to one, not even know about pesticides, but two, if you know about pesticides and you know that they're bad for you, you could, you know, obviously there's things you can do to them with like soaking them in vinegar and baking soda and these other things to take them out. But say you couldn't, you could kind of convince yourself that pesticides are really good for you and that, it will enhance your health and things of that sort. Same thing with like plastics. If you were absolutely forced to wear plastic clothing, and of course, in the real world, people are not, and they can just buy clothing, you know, cotton clothing is actually really cheap. Like you can just buy it. But if like you were forced to wear plastic clothing, you could believe what benefits you, which is that the plastic clothing is really good for me. It's going to give me all these health benefits, make me think better, make me stronger, make me faster. Um, and so, in some areas, it's not realistic because you're not actually forced to do these things. But let's say like you're a child in Africa, right? And you are barely getting enough protein in your diet because there's just not enough food around. Or like your water's contaminated or something like that. You can believe you can believe what benefits you in the fact that, hey, this water is contaminated. in reality, I know that's false, but practically it doesn't benefit me. So I'm going to believe what benefits me because I know that belief impacts me physiologically at a level that I don't completely understand. And so I would take on the belief that, you know, I'm super strong. This contaminated water isn't impacting me. That's also something you can, like, the belief doesn't have to be that the bad thing is good for you. The belief can be that you are good and strong and therefore it won't affect you. So you can tell yourself, like, I'm super strong individual. Like, even though I'm not getting enough protein, and even though I'm eating this or drinking this, contaminated water, it's not going to affect me. I'm super strong. I have a very good, you know, digestion and very good organs that are going to filter all this stuff out, and I'm super strong. Um, and so it's not going to affect me. And so like that's actually probably a better frame of thinking yourself too strong or stronger, and so that these things don't affect you. Maybe not necessarily that they are good for you. That could also be beneficial, but you could also just say that you're so strong, and believe that you are strong enough to where it's not going to affect you. Another one that I want to talk about is kind of depression. I already talked about ADHD and depression in another video, but a big reason why so many people are depressed is because they believe in depression. When you go back to first principles, everything is made up. All of the words I'm saying right now, the alphabet, all languages, they're all made up. Like when I say these words that I'm saying right now, you only understand them because we've like conclusively said as a society, like one is going to mean one, or, what is going to mean, like I'm asking, I can't even explain it because I need the words to explain it. But when you give something a name, it it becomes real in your head. And so as a child, you don't know what depression is or whatever. And then all of a sudden you're like feeling sad one day and the doctor or your parents or your teacher or whatever, or a friend explains to you what depression is. And then all of a sudden you think back on your life and you're like, oh my God, I'm so depressed. Or, you know, you just think that you have depression or are even capable of having depression, or a doctor gives you the diagnosis of you're depressed or you have depression, and then you start to believe it because it is something that you can think of in your head. Like if you didn't know what depression was, you wouldn't even be able to think of it in your head and it wouldn't be able to affect you in that way. And so, I personally don't believe depression is a thing. I think that being depressed is a thing, like the feeling of being depressed. You can be depressed. And sure, you can be depressed all the time. I wouldn't call that depression. I wouldn't call that a medical diagnosis or something that I can't affect. Um, I would call being depressed a feeling that, like all other feelings, is something that your body chemically creates in your head in order to get you to change somehow. So, most people, when they're depressed or have felt depressed, myself in the past, it's because something in my life, like my body or my brain, has not liked subconsciously and wanted me to change. And then you change those things and you don't, and you're not depressed anymore. And so, like, taking on the mindset that depression is not real benefits me as a person. And I believe that's just reality, but and so it's hard because yes, you want to understand and consistently update reality, but sometimes you're you can't affect reality. And so you have to believe what benefits you. But as much as you can, you want to have your beliefs line up with reality. There are only certain scenarios where it doesn't work like that, but a lot of people are having that happen to them in places where they shouldn't. Like I talked about with their coffees, with their plastic clothing, with all their scented products and things of that sort. Um, and the last one that I want to talk about is personal accountability. And so, with people who are always complaining or pointing at others because of their problems, oh, it's because of, the president, oh, it's because of the war, oh, it's because of my parents, it's because of my friends. Whoever you point at to blame people, you give them power. So if everything that is wrong about your life or yourself is because of the president or your parents or your friends, then I guess you can't do anything about it because it's because of your parents or it's because of your friends. But if you point the finger at yourself and you say, "Hey, there's certain things in my life that aren't going well, but it's because of me," all of a sudden now that gives you the responsibility. And then, since it's because of you, you're able to change that and then make it good because of you. And so, if you can take on that personal accountability, this was like a huge thing for me multiple years ago when I sort of really understood this concept. Um, and so, again, I think this is something that is true in reality, but maybe not entirely. The president's decisions definitely affect me. How my parents raised me definitely affect me. How my friends, you know, go about their life and their lifestyle definitely affects me. But you know what I also have? I also have free will and choice. And so there are many things in my life that I can do to negate or enhance those things based on what I want. So if, you know, for example, my friends are doing things that I don't like, I can just not be friends with them anymore. Or if my friends are doing things that I do like, I can make sure to stay close with them and build good relationships with them because they're helping out my life and hopefully I'm helping out theirs. Same thing with my parents. Like if your parents didn't raise you well, sure, you can blame all your problems on your parents, or you can say, yeah, that's just unfortunate, but I can still change things. I can change who I am as a person and become a better person. And then you can do that. So, maybe in reality, it's true that these certain things um, affected you or currently affect you, and there is nothing you can do about it. There's nothing you can do about those specific things. That may be true, but that belief doesn't benefit you. The belief that does benefit you is that it's all under your control, and there's always things that you can do to change your life and your reality. Um, and so, yeah, you want to understand and consistently update reality, yet you want to believe what benefits you because belief is power and such a huge key in life that unlocks so many things, um, you know, depending on how you use it. And so, thank you for watching.